Okay,
Yes,
sige.
sir, madam.
Okay, so thank you. Kita ba akong presentation daron?
Opo, sir.
Okay, sige. Okay, so without further ado, we're going to start our first lesson in regards with UI UX design. Okay, so dili na lang ta mag-prayer because we already had our prayer kaganiha. Okay, so start na lang ta sa ato ang lesson dahil. Okay, so for our first lesson, we're going to discuss the user experience methods of research. So basically, no, if ever we're going to do some UX design, it means user experience design. So one of the major components of designing based on the user experience is for you to conduct a research. Okay, research on the user's environment. Okay, research ba mo sa user's behavior, how they're trying to use certain applications. So what are their needs? What are their standards? Okay, so unsa ba ang ikalisdan nila sa mga applications na the same sa inyong ginabuhat or unsa pa itong mga strengths ng mga applications na nagamit nila. So you need to acquire those data. Okay, so mo nang kailangan nato research dire. So it doesn't necessarily mean na magbuhat ang RRL, no? Okay, so dili ta mag-RRL karon. Okay, so it's just the process of having a user experience research is to conduct interview, basically. Okay, so mauna ang ginabuhat most likely if ever you're going to acquire data, okay, from your target users. Okay, so for our objectives today, okay, first, to discuss the 3 rules of usability. Second, to give an overview to the development process for UX design. Third, discuss the components of user experience. Fourth, discuss the basic methods of UX. Fifth, discuss how to assess user experience. 6, discuss the 5 habits of highly effective researchers. 7, discuss the alternatives to contextual inquiry. And lastly, 8, to execute the habits of a highly effective researcher. So again, ang research nato karon dili ka ng pina-RRL, but we're going to adapt the methods of research of user experience design. Okay, so why is context important? Okay, for example, this image. So an improper design of urina. So just imagine having this kind of design. Okay, naadara ang imong toilet bowl and then na ang imong urina. Okay, so just imagine you're doing your you're doing your private session there. Okay, and then someone comes in and then para mangihi. Okay, so this is actually an improper design. Okay, so you need to know the proper context of how are you going to design things. Okay, so dili dapat pataka ang pag-design. Oftenly, design is one of the most compromised, okay, or ginaon sila, no, take for granted na element in regards with software development. The mindset of software developers most likely is that as long as there are the functions, okay, or naanadara ang sa mga requirements na kailangan sa isang system o sa isang software, goods na ta. Okay, so dapat dili ang inyong mindset, because how are you going to sell a certain application if ever this sellable lang na element are the functions and not the design? Of course, in our modern society, modern industry, okay, or modern era nowadays, people are actually looking for something that is usable and aesthetically pleasing. So meaning they're enjoying or having fun, okay, using your application. So it's not just all about the functions itself. So kung saan ninyo pag baligya sa isa ka application, if ever naaganit nila ang mga functions, but then it is not it is not that pleasing, no, sa pananaw sa inyong users. Okay, so dili anak ka-attractive ang design sa inyong application. Okay, so the design and the components or the functions should meet halfway as well. Okay, so dapat wala ma-compromise sa ila. Dapat nindot ang design, dapat nindot po ang functions. Okay, so dapat there is a balance between your design and function. So if ever we're going to say na UI UX, it doesn't mean na kato mga visual elements lang ang ginatanaw na. Kung nindot ra ang iyang design, dili. Okay? So, natay ginatawag na usability. Meaning, magamit ba ang inyong application because of the design itself. Asa ninyo gibutang ang buttons, how are you going to make your users navigate easily the functions na i-include ninyo sa inyong application. Okay? And one of the factor or characteristic of a good application in terms of usability, kay if ever nag-download si user ninyo sa inyong application, most likely you don't need to have that training na or kanang ingnan ninyo sila kung unsaon paggamit. Okay, so mag-open pa lang nila and they're going to do some tasks na gusto nila buhaton. There are the ones who are exploring na the application easily. So dali na nila makita ay dali ko ato para mabuhat na ako ang kanin na task. Okay, for example, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, di ba? YouTube, for example, Google, Gmail. Okay? So, walay nagatudlo sa atog ingana unsaon na paggamit. But then, if ever we're going to use those applications or websites, dali ra kaayo nato i-navigate. We know where to go. Okay? Most likely, because of the good design implemented sa kana na mga application or software. Okay, so moving on, and how can we solve this problem, kaning improper design, okay, or kaning out of context na mga designs, no? Okay, so of course, through contextual inquiry. Okay, so the 4 key steps in contextual inquiry, first we have the context. So as you can see here, you go to the user's home or work environment to understand the context of your user's actions. So observation alone or out of context interviews are insufficient. So kailangan ninyo tanawon jud ang inyong mga users in the working environment itself. Okay? So sa karon it's not actually possible, okay? Because I don't want you to take risk of observing people and how they are using certain applications outside because we are facing this pandemic. Okay? So at least lang you have the idea of how are you going to do this, right? Okay, so pwede ninyo to answer work environments and use and then you're going to observe what they are doing, okay, in regards with accessing a certain application. The second, okay, adopt a master-apprentice relationship model. This discourages the participant from seeing you as the expert interviewer and means you collect more realistic data. Okay, so it's all about partnership here. Okay, so makita ninyo later on na ang mga set of interview questions na to kay dili nga naka-technical. Okay, it's more on the personal level because you need to gain something or the data of the personality or the character of your user. Okay, so just like what I have said last time, if ever you're going to interview, okay, or gather some context from different users, you need to know them. Okay? You need to know their character. Mura siya on a personal level in a sense, sa pagkailan ninyo sa ilahan dapat. And then you're going to collect this gathered data and make it into one persona, okay, or into one character. So, which is buhaton nato po. Okay, so next, third, we have the interpretation. So interpret your observations with the participant to verify that your assumptions and conclusions are correct. And fourth, focus. So agree the focus of the inquiry with the development team before your site visit. So capture this focus in an observation guide to prevent you getting sidetracked. Okay, for the context exercise 1. Okay, so imagine you work for a company developing a new user interface for a home entertainment system. Okay, so you're going to visit a customer to see how the existing system is used. So after you've watched the video, you identify 5 things you learned from observing OZ in context. Okay, so we have this video. Okay, so I don't know lang if ever madungganin nyo, no?
Weather in Afghanistan, 2,000 degrees and cloudy. Fucking there. Stuck on the weather channel.
screen you can control basically the whole house. Satellite, and then there's satellite music, CD.
What kind of fucking stupid thing?
We didn't give the owners any written instructions. We gave them the remote controls, and then the owners figure out by themselves how to work it. So that's how easy it is.
Weak signal, that's about what's that fucking that weak signal? Jack! Can I get this fucking this television to work? I'm a very simple man. You gotta have like computer knowledge to turn the fucking TV on and off. Jack! Fucking thing, why can't I get a normal fucking TV, man? I press this one button and the shower starts and going, what is this? Where am I, man? Despise that shit. And the nightmare continues. Nightmare in Beverly Hills.
Take the satellite.
Yeah.
That should come on.
We only do a fucking blowjob as well. Let's go on to press blowjob. Kyle, kids are going to eat you. Yes, I think I know. I think I'm close.
Lightning fast fires to shoot down enemy planes. Deadly bombers to flatten German and Japanese warplanes.
Okay, so I don't know lang if ever klaro ba sa inyo ang sounds, no? Okay, so I'm not actually sure. Okay, madunggan sa makita pa. Okay, sige. Okay, so if ever madunggan, ay dili kayo madunggan, no? Okay, so at least pakitan man po ninyo ang video. Okay, so I'm not going to ask you na lang, what did you observe in regards with the video, no? But basically, the video tells about Ozzy, okay, sa kaning lalaki dere, ano. He's trying to change the channel of his television using the remote. Okay? But then, sa iyang experience kay naglisod siya. Okay? Given the simple task, the simplest task of changing the channel of the TV or the television, kay dali na kayo. Okay? So, but then given the device na ginagamit niya, it makes it more complicated. Okay? But then, ang ingon sa developer sa device kay wala sila nag-include dito o written instruction for the user because they assume na dali ra kayo gamiton ang ilahang system. Okay, so dili pwede na ang inyong mindset. Okay? You cannot assume something if ever wala ninyo nakitaan kung ginaon sa paggamit sa isa ka tao, okay, ang inyong device or application. So you cannot assume na this one is actually easy because that's your opinion. Okay? Kamo nag-develop na, of course, you know how to operate that one. Okay? So we should assume na these people are going to buy this device. These people are going to use our application or our system are actually people na wala sila kaayoy unsa technical knowledge or technical know-how. Okay? So, ingan na, dili na pwede ingon na dali ra kaya ni gamiton ng among application. No, because lahi-lahi ang pag-adapt sa isa ka tao in terms of an application. Okay? In terms of a new device for them. Okay? So, most likely ka nang medyo tiguang na pod nato ng mga customers. Okay? So, most likely they're having a hard time or difficulty coping with the new technology, no? Okay, so we need to address that one as well if ever they are part of our target users. Okay, so dili na to pwede ingon na dali ra siya para sa mga teenager. Of course, dali ra po na siya sa mga tiguang or the other way round. Okay, so dali naman magamit sa mga oldies. So for sure, mga bata, dali ra po din magamit ang atong application. So you cannot assume that way. Okay, so you need to have the contextual inquiry. You need to ask them. Okay, asa ba sila nagkalisod? Or asa ba sila nasayunan in terms of a certain device or an application. Okay, so going back, okay, so we have these observations. So the developer of the system has an entirely different view of the system's ease of use to OZ. So just like what I have said earlier, your own view, your personal view in regards with how easy this application can be used is different from your users. Okay? Entirely different from your users. Eh nga naman, because you are the ones that developed that application. Of course, you know how to use that one. Every single module, every single function. You are familiar with that one. Eh, but then ng mga users ninyo, kay bagura ninyo na unsa pag. Bagura na sila nakagamit na ng application ninyo. So you need to address that one. How they're going to navigate your application more easily, just like kamo mismo na sa iyo nanda sa inyo hang design sa app. Okay? Next, OZ thumbs the remote control, so it needs to be strong. Okay, so makita nato dito nagitap ang remote control kay abiniyag dakot. Okay, so the material should be strong. For example, giyon sa ba pag-design sa mga smartphones. Okay, so siguro how did they design smartphones is that they observe as well. Okay, these people who are using smartphones or cell phones na usahay matagap yun ang ato ang mga smartphones. Okay, so kung matagap, most likely there is a possibility na mag-crack ang screen. So ang gibuhat sa mga designer, okay, kaning mga nag-supply sa ato mga smartphones, nagabuhat ng mga smartphones, kaya nag-incorporate sila kaning mga according Gorilla Glass, for example, na ginatawag na para kung matagap, okay, at least dili magguba dayon. Okay? So, naapod sila yung mga unsa na observe po na usahay matagap po ang phone okay, sa tubig. Or usahay, dili maunsa no, dili malikayan na makalimtan na to, na naaday ang cellphone sa ato ang bulsa, and then nagunsa nag-dive na ta sa dagat or sa pool. Okay, so mao na nag-incorporate po sila og kanang waterproof technology okay, sa ilahang devices to improve the design okay, sa ilahang ginapaligya. It's all about how you're going to address this kind of problem, no? Na ginaunsa, na commonly na ma-observe nila and by experience sa ilahang mga users. Okay, so third, when you start with technology, OC calls on Jack for help. At first, OC refers to the system as a computer, not a television. And says you need computer knowledge to turn it on and off. Okay, so may invalidate ang giingon ni the developer diri na dali ra daw kaayo ang paggamit sa system. That's why they did not include written instruction of the remote. Kay nagkalisod din si OC, diba? So what more sa katong mga other users na remote, no? Okay, so dili pwede na kanang wala kay mga instructions dira. Okay, if ever you are developing a complex application. Okay, so you can actually make your application or your application's interface as simple, okay, and aesthetically pleasing, no, as possible. But then if ever dili jud too complex to the iyang mga functions, then you need to put on some tutorial, okay, or some instructions on how they're going to use your application or device. Okay, next, when Jack comes to fix it, OC doesn't really listen. So he plays with the cat, is not interested in the technicalities of how it works. And this is true to all the users. Okay, na ginagamit na ito. I didn't put all, but most of them, they are not actually concerned about how did you develop the application? What's about technology behind this one? How did you code this one? Okay, so wala na sila ilabot, ana. Ang ilahang focus lang is that they can use this application for the purpose na gusto nila gamitan. Okay, for the sole purpose na nag-download gani ko ng application para magamit na ko. So nga no, lisod man siya gamiton. Okay, so dapat dili nato na ihatag ng impression sa atong mga users because sayang ra ang functionality na i-incorporate dito if ever dili nila magamit. Okay, because of the design na inyong i-integrate. Okay, and next, the remote control is big and Jack tries not to balance it on his knee. Maybe it would benefit from a groove base to make this easier. Okay, so 3 rules of usability. Okay, so number 1, early and continual focus on users and their tasks. So you must understand your users and what they want to do at the time. So this understanding is arrived at by directly studying their behavior and attitudes and by studying the nature of the goals you expect them to accomplish. Most likely, if ever we're going to test an application in terms of the design, dili nato sila gina-guide. Okay? In terms of UX research tapos nahumanan ninyo ang design based on your contextual inquiry, and then gipatest ninyo sa inyong users, dili ninyo sila i-guide. Okay? Ang ginabuhat sa developer naon sa na design is to give the user a specific task. And tanawon ninyo kung kung unsa ka paspas niya nakitaan. Okay, kato na function, no? For example, Facebook. Okay? Nagbuhat mo ka ng application na mura Facebook, for example, a social media application. And then the task is, how are you going to change your profile picture, for example? Okay? So dapat dali ra niya ma-change ang profile picture without your guidance. Okay? So meaning mauna na siya ang isa ka gauge, no, kung successful ba ang usability sa imuhang application or dili. Okay? Because they can actually use the application without the guidance of the developer. So, ang inyong gibuhat ra kay naghatag mong task sa ila kung unsa ang ilang buhaton, and they are the ones exploring the application. And if ever successful ang pagbuhat nila og task, meaning you implemented a good design sa inyong software application. Okay, second, empirical measurement of user behavior. So, early in the development process, intended users should actually use simulations and prototypes to carry out real tasks, and their performance and reactions should be observed, recorded, and analyzed. Okay, so dapat tanawan po ninyo ang ilang reaction, no, in terms of how they're going, in terms of their impressions sa prototype na gibuhat ninyo. Okay, so we're going to do some prototypes pohon. Okay, so we'll try to invite some people. Okay, so if ever you're going to present your prototype, we're going to observe kung sa bang ilahang impression. Di makita lang gud nimo dira sa facial expression sa isa ka user, no, kung are they delighted sa inyong prototype, sa inyong design? Do they have this nag-enjoy ba sila tanawon? Are they having fun? Or are they frowning? Okay? Sa design nag-present nila. So meaning, kung if ever dili nindot ang ilang expression, most likely the design is not good as well. Okay, so ayan na. Third, iterative design. Okay, so as we all know, iterative design, pabalik-balik. Okay, so repetitive. Because the main focus here is to deliver something that is based on the standards of the customers, based on the standards of the users. So meaning kung napa sila yung mga comments dira, na sila gusto ipadungag sa inyo ang design, most likely you need to repeat the cycle of the development of the design. Okay, so that's why iterative ang ginagamit dere, because in user experience design, as per the course description, okay, or sa term pa lang na UX, user experience, the main focus here is the experience of the user. Okay, so dili pwede ang experience ninyo. Okay, so mao nang ginabalik-balik siya bisag unsa nang kanang kapoy na kaayo naala po gusto ipadungag ang ato ang mga users. Okay, so wala tayong mabuhat ana. Okay, because we are doing an application for them to use. Dili magud kita ra ang magamit ana. Sila ang magamit ana. And we need to abide or follow their preferences, okay, in terms of the design. Okay, so when problems are found in user testing, they must be fixed. Okay, so this means design must be iterative. There must be a cycle of the design, test and measure, and redesign repeated until the usability objectives are met. Okay, so balik-balikon nato hangtod sa ma-meet na nato ang ato ang objectives. Okay, next, waterfall model where production is king. Okay, so most likely if ever we're going to develop a system, no, waterfall model lang ito ang ginagamit because during the waterfall model phases or stages, most likely kita make sure na nato na nindot. Okay? Tanan na unsa or nahanay na nato tanan na activities or task for each phase. Okay? Before we're going to proceed for the next phase. Okay? Kay dili man gud ta pwede magbalik, okay, sa sa sinugdanan if ever na-attain na mali, because if ever we're going to do that, wala na nato ginasunod ang concept ni waterfall. Okay, so si waterfall kay gina-make sure nato na each stage is done in a high quality manner. Okay, before we're going to proceed to the next phase. Okay, until we're going to reach the deployment phase na. Okay, so spec changes nearly impossible. Nearly impossible because wala na nato gina-change na siya. Gina-make sure na nato na goods na tanan before we're going to proceed with the next stage. And the goals for this one is the functionality and stability, okay, of your application. Okay, next. Okay, so we have this visualization of the waterfall model. Okay, so first we have the requirements analysis. Second phase, the design. Okay, third, the development. Fourth, testing. And then fifth, maintenance. So again, sa akong giingon pa kaganiha, yun na make sure na nato na hanay na nato tanan diring task, the requirement analysis before we're going to proceed with the design. Okay, so dili nato pwede mabalikan na ni siya. Okay, for example, during the design phase naman, no, based on the schedule na giyon sa ninyo, specified ninyo because the schedule should also represent the development model that you have used or the SDLC that you have used. Okay, so for example, sa design, okay, and then naunsa ninyo na nahuna-hunaan ninyo na hala, dapat dahil kulang na gibuhat, na wala na buhat sa requirements analysis. Dili na pwede mo balik dira because you are following the waterfall model, meaning patagak yun siya. Okay? So sa waterfall, dili man ka pwede na mulangoy pataas. Okay? So pa-dive yun ka dapat. So ingana dapat siya. So if ever you wanted to have this development model na pwede kang magbalik-balik, most likely you need to follow iterative na lang. Okay? Para pwede mo balik, pwede na-repetition. Okay? Sa cycle na gamit ninyo or ginabuhat ninyo, okay, in terms of the software development. Okay, so next we have the iterative design where customer is key. Okay, so that's why iterative design is what we're going to use in regards with UX design. Okay, so this is waterfall. Okay, si waterfall naman production na nga to ang focus nila. Sa iterative kay si customer. So just like what I have said, UX is actually focused on the user or the customer itself. Okay, so spec changes inevitable, meaning dili nato mapugnan ang pagbago sa ato ang mga design or sa spec sa ato ang i-develop na application. Okay, so inevitable siya and goals are usability and usefulness. Okay, so for the visualization, okay, so as you can see here, okay, so design. So you're going to design this one. You're going to build and assess. Okay, so after design, i-build ninyo. Okay, so meaning design is murag documentation of how are you going to plan. Okay, the design itself. So pag-build ka, dira na ninyo i-code, dira na ninyo i-program. Okay, so and then assess, dira na mo sunod si testing. Okay, and then after testing, so dira naman po mo gawas ang kanang mga comments natin or evaluation results from the users. Okay, so meaning, if ever na pa yung mga comments dira or nakita nila na kailangan pa i-improve sa design, build, assess, design, build, assess. Okay, so meaning there is a repetitive cycle until na ma-meet nato ang ato ang objective in terms of usability. Okay, so this is why this one is called as an iterative model because of the repetition na process. Okay, so we also have the ISO standards. Okay, so the ISO 9241-210 process. So this is the 5 steps based on the ISO standards. First, centered design. Okay, so system must encompass the specified functional, organizational, and user requirements. Okay, next, observe and analyze. So understand and specify the context of use. Okay, next, design. So specify the user and organizational requirements. Next, prototype. Okay, produce minimum viable design solutions. Next, user feedback. Evaluate designs against requirements. And then balik ko na po dato if ever na natay feedback and then wala pa nato na meet ang ato ang objectives. So most likely we need to repeat the cycle. Okay? Based on the ISO standard, kaya siya na processes. Okay, so we also have the user-centered design steps. Okay, so we have the analyzing the opportunity, build the context of use, create the user experience, and track real-world usage, and continuously improve design. Okay, so for analyzing the opportunity, we have to identify the stakeholders or identify the users, write the site mandate, and segment the market. Okay, so unsa ba ang market nato? Are we actually targeting kaning teenagers? Okay, or are we targeting kaning mga mid na mga edad na sa tao? Okay, so mid-20s pa, mid-30s, inya na. Okay, so kana. And then next, build the context of use. Okay, so build customer profiles. So katong buhatan nato diri sa create persona. Okay, build environment profiles and build task profiles. Okay, next, create the user experience. So develop the information architecture, lay out the screens, evaluate usability, agree key performance indicators. So you can actually repeat that one if ever wala pa na human ang inyong kanina stage or creating the user experience. Then afterwards, okay, so track real-world usage and continuously improve the site. So this is in the form of kaning mga updates nato. So as you can observe, ang design ni Facebook, ang design ni Twitter, di ba? Nag-change siya from time to time. Okay, to cater sa mga trends no karon, okay, in terms of the design. Okay, so para mas mapadali pod ang pag-navigate ni user in terms of the application. Okay, so usahay man ko na yung mga trends sa design na kailangan nila i-adapt. For example, sa una kay grabe kayo ang mga 3D na mga text and icons. And then karon kaya ginagamit na kayo ng mga flat icons na and flat colors, for example. So there is the adaptability for them to improve, okay, and stay relevant in terms of the design of the application, okay, based on the modern standards sa mga users. Okay, so components of UX, first value. Okay, so is it useful or is it better than the alternatives? Okay, so of course, dapat kung magbuhat ang isa ka application, it should be useful, okay, for our users. And if ever this application is not murag bag-o na para sa ilaha, we need to determine how this application is better than the others. Okay, or how are we going to make this application better than the alternatives? Okay, so excuse. Okay, so for example, this is Desktop 1979. So in terms of the design, very very karaan, very simple. Okay, but then at least we know, okay, the usefulness of this design. Okay, because we don't need a fancy design po siguro no, sa una. In terms of calculating, okay, the total cost of items na ipalit, okay, sa isa ka customer. For example, dali ra natin ma-determine unsang item name, number of items na ipalit, okay, the unit price, and the total cost per item. Okay, and then the subtotal plus 9.75% tax, and the overall total of katong gipalit ni customer. Okay, so inyan. So at least ma-determine nato dayon diri. Okay, and then next we also have the usability. Can users do what they need to do? Okay, for example, Motorola ROKR. So medyo karaan siya na sa example. First, this is a cell phone pa, basic phone. Okay, sa una na. Okay, but the question here is, can users do what they need to do? So, ano nagapalit pag cellphone ng mga tao sa una? Of course, to communicate with their loved ones, to communicate with other people. Okay, so can this cell phone able to make them talk with each other? Okay, bisag layo sila or remotely. Basically yes. Okay, so pwede. Can they communicate with each other via text? So pwede po tayo. Okay, so kanara. Okay, so very simple design. Okay, it's sleek in a sense. Okay, visually appealing man po siya. Kasi dili na smartphone na basic phone na po siya. Okay, but in terms of usability, of course the users can do what they need to do. Okay, so sa ing ani ran the design point. Third, the desirability. So is it fun, attractive, and pleasant to use? For example, the iPad 2000. Okay, so I don't know if ever na may iPad sa una, no? Okay, so medyo mahal ko din sa una, di ba, ang iPad. 10,000 ka pin, 20,000 ka pin, I don't know lang if ever ka na price din sa una. Okay, but is it fun to use ba? Of course, this is so fun to use. Okay? Ang pag-scroll mo pa lang diri part, di ba? To navigate or scroll down or scroll up sa inyong mga music dira. Okay, so this is actually lingaw siya. Okay, gamito, no? It's enjoyable in a sense. So, dili pa man also ang touchscreen sa una, so we have this one. Okay, so kato. Okay, moving on, we also have for adaptability. Actually, this is adaptability. Okay, so is it easy to find and start using? Okay, so adaptability meaning, asa ba nato madownload ninyo ang application? Make your application available to the users. Kanang dali ra po. Easy to find. Okay? So for example, are you going to post this one or deploy this one sa Play Store, sa App Store? Most likely mo na nga to ang ginagamit, no? Okay, to download applications. Or if ever we're going to search on Google, para ba na sa inyong website? Asa ba makita ng download link sa inyong website? Most likely yan. So ayaw ninyo paliste ang inyong mga users to search and to download your application. Okay? So, for example, this one, a Duolingo, a onboarding process. Okay, so yeah, it's actually easy to search for. Okay, and it is also easy to use as well. Okay, given that Duolingo is kind of complex in terms of its functions, because I guess Duolingo is an application for you to learn different languages. Okay, so nakagamit po ko sa una, no, sa mobile app. Okay, the thing na nindot sa ilaha kay, they know that medyo complex ang ilang application in terms of the functionality, okay, in terms of the different methods of how they're going to teach the users with regards to different na mga different na mga languages. So naay mga tutorials dito alang magawas. Okay? Para maunsa lang ka, ma-familiarize ra ka sa interface sa ilahang application. And that's good. Okay? Na unsa no na i-incorporate sa inyong app. Okay? Kay murag ginapadali ninyo ang paggamit sa mga users sa inyong application. Okay, so moving on, we also have the basic methods of UX. Okay, so understanding users, design and prototyping, and evaluating designs. Most likely, these are the basic or essential stages that we're going to go through in terms of UX design. Okay, so we need to understand the users. Okay, we need to characterize them. We need to gather data from them for us to be able to design something na makapa-maximize or makahatag sa ilahang optimal user experience. Okay, so design and prototyping. So daghan tag maagian sa design and prototyping. The prototyping doesn't just limited sa kanang paggamit o prototyping tools na to. So magamit ng mga paper prototyping na procedure, okay, wherein we're just going to draw the screens. Okay, but then in a functional na way po, no? So I'm going to demonstrate that one po. Okay, so and evaluating design. So of course, dili nato maingon na nindot ang ato ang design if ever dili nato na siya ipa-evaluate sa ato ang mga users. Okay, so the 4 elements of user experience, so kato value, usability, adaptability, and desirability. Okay, so assessing UX, so questions. So for the value, in order for us, or in the face of understanding the users, what do users need? And for evaluating design, does this design fulfill the need? Okay, for usability, how do they do it now? And can they get it done with this in regards to the evaluation? Desirability, what do they desire? And is the design appealing? Okay, of course, just like what I have said kaganiha, dapat aesthetically pleasing gihapon ang inyong gidesign aside from aside from having this characteristic of usability or kanang dali ra kayo magamit ang inyong application. And we also have adaptability. So where do users look for things? So can users find and access this? Okay, so you need to answer these questions na, and most likely if ever maansweran na ninyo and the results are actually positive, then you can say or you can conclude that the design is actually good. Okay, in terms of how did you develop or how did you conduct your UX design, okay, or UX research. Okay, so the 5 habits of a highly effective researcher. Number 1, create a focus question. Okay, so give the project team 5 minutes to brainstorm questions they would like to ask to their users. Okay, so na during our UI UX workshop, gibuhat po naman na siya. Okay, so actually na may mga sticky notes dito na mo butang ang gibutang ang mga questions, and then gibutohan kung unsa dapat ang mga questions pa na i-ask namo sa amo ang users. Kaya because we cannot actually ask all of the questions no na gi-suggest sa team ninyo sa atong users because it will take time. So butohan ra po na siya. So each questions gets written on a sticky note. After 5 minutes, get the team to arrange the questions into groups. Ask people to vote for the most important group, and the group of questions with the most votes becomes the articulations of the focus question. Okay, so very easy, but then I guess I'm going to think of an alternative po, no, on how are we going to do this one online. Okay, so kay dili man gud nato ni siya mabuhat personally. So most likely we're just going to create breakout sessions, no? So dira mo mag-discuss within your team, and then we're going to do this process in regards to the UX design. Okay, so second, record the session. The participants' verbal protocol is central to your analysis, and video recording is optional. Okay, third, ask good questions. So what are the questions ba? Okay, just like what I have said kaniha, the question should be a little bit more personal than of technical, okay, in terms of interviewing. In regards to the UX design. E nga naman, because you're actually getting the data or the character of your users. Okay, so maunang kailangan ninyo mag-connect sa ila, subcon sila para maka-design mo based sa pagsabot ninyo sa ila. Okay, so meaning, the design itself is just mura siyang instrument that you actually understand these users. In terms of their personality, in terms of their character, in terms of their preferences. Okay, so most likely, okay, so what are the good questions that you can actually ask them? Okay, so here are the list, okay, but are not limited to this one. So suggestion lang siya. So some of the great questions you might want to ask. So first, magsugod to sa general question. So could you describe a typical day in your office? Okay. And then what makes a good day? What makes it a bad day? Okay, so it's a little bit more personal, okay, in a sense. So what activities currently waste your time? What is most important to you? How do you work around problems? So what are the most common things you do with the site? So nag-aansa na siya, nag-sugod na siya o kanang adto sa medyo technical na part. So dili po siya technical jud kaayo. Okay, but then it's the question na padulong na siya sa pag-design ninyo sa application. So that is a question wherein serve as the main guide on how are you going to design the application. So which parts of the website do you use most? What are your favorite aspects of the website? What drives you crazy? Most likely, you're going to know what are the strengths of the websites that they are currently using, or the application that your users are actually currently using, no? So that you could adapt it, okay, or incorporate or integrate it sa inyong application mismo. And what drives you crazy? Okay, so asa bang nila ganahan dito para malikayan po ninyo o butang sa inyong application. So if you could change something, what would it be? Okay? So at least man lang na nag-gather na mo data diri, diba? Can you show me the major steps you go through in carrying out that activity? What helps you make decisions? What would you prefer not to do? What do you procrastinate on? And what made you decide to do it this way? Okay, so these are just guide questions, ha? Okay, so pwede mo formulate of questions ninyo, no? That sounds like this. Okay, so murag personal siya in a sense. So the important thing on data gathering in regards with UX is how are you going to formulate questions wherein you can actually connect with your user. Okay, so murag unsara mo murag ang connection ninyo in terms of the interview kay dili nila tan-awon ka mo na murag expert kaayo technically. Okay, murag unsa lang unsa taw casual conversation lang. Okay? So more on a personal level ang inyong pag-ila-ila sa inyong users. Okay, so remember that a gap between what people say and what people do is a design opportunity. Okay, so kana. And the 5 habits of a highly effective researcher. 4th, okay, so take photographs. And 5th, take great notes. So reserve the first page of your notes for any abbreviations and jargon that you hear. So this quickly builds into a useful glossary. If you try the AIEOO method. So this acronym stands for activities, environment, interactions, objects, and users. So choreograph your note-taking so that it balances with appropriate eye contact and other signs that you are attending. Okay, so while you are doing interviews, of course, you're going to take the notes. Okay, if ever you are not recording the sound. So take down the important notes. If ever nag-answer sila diraa, but then you need to make them feel that you're actually listening to them. So magtando na ba mo, mag-ingon mo, ana. Okay, so make them feel that you're listening. Okay, so yung na. Pero do not overly do that one. Na murag every word na lang magatando mo, murag every word naga-respond mo sa ila. Okay, so you try to rehearse that one, but then during the interview, dapat dili nila ma-feel na kanang rehearse kayo ang inyong pagtando or pagtubag. Okay? So murag natural lang gihapon. Okay? Para mas maganahan sila o answer sa inyong mga interview questions. Okay, so next. So sorry, nalapa siya. Okay, so the other habits of highly effective researcher: summarize observations immediately. So schedule around 15 minutes after each participant to summarize what you have learned. So use a standardized form to summarize the information. Second, organize your data. So after your observation, use the data to understand the mental models people build, the tools they use, the terminology they use to describe what they do, and the workflow. Okay, so the underlying goals as well that people have and people's underlying values. Okay, so alternatives are complements to contextual inquiry. Okay, so if ever dili ninyo mabuhat ang contextual inquiry or kaning pag-interview sa ilaha, okay, you can actually do some diary study. So give the users a diary or blog to record their thoughts, experiences, and impressions around the topic. Okay, second, critical incidents. Ask users to write down what they were doing 5 minutes before and 5 minutes after a critical incident. Third, photo ethnography. give users a camera, okay, but then you don't need to do this one because most of the people have their cameras naman, no, sa ilang mga smartphones, and ask them to photo document a workday or weekend or leisure day. Okay, fourth, remote desktop. Okay, so remote desktop, siguro pwede mo magamit ng TeamViewer or any desk, kanang ingana. Okay, so para makita ninyo ang ilahang screen. So ask users to share their screen with you and talk through the way they work. Okay, so yeah, I guess that would be all, okay, for our discussion in regards with UI UX. The first lesson in regards with UI UX method of research. Okay, so yeah, it's already 4 p.m. Okay, so at least medyo 1 hour na po ang ato ang discussion, so wala na siya nilakas. Okay, so at least makarest for the remaining time. Okay, so for the summary of this lesson, context is important, of course. Okay, so please, if ever you're going to design something, make it sure na proper ang pag-design niyo. Okay, so UX is multifaceted, and basic UX methods can address many concerns. Okay, so thought of the day, so if you don't talk to your customers, how will you know how to talk to your customers? Okay, so if ever ulawon mo, because contextual inquiry is all about interviewing. So meaning you need to interact with your users. Okay, so you need to interview them. So kung ulawon mo, but then you feel this urge, okay, na gusto nyo din yung mag-interview pero feeling nyo dili ninyo kaya. So you will not know, okay, if ever dili ninyo buhaton, dili ninyo na siya mag-surpass na challenge sa inyong sarili. If ever dili ninyo ilet ang inyong sarili na buhaton din na siya. Okay, so you need to have this kind of skill. Okay, basic skills sa UX design is communication between you and your users. Okay, so kanang ulaw-ulaw, okay, so you need to set aside that one. Okay, though it's easy to say than done, no. Okay, so but then it's it's a requirement for you to have. It's a skill na gina-require sa inyo for UX design. Okay, so the way or the communication skills na ginatawag mo. So you need to practice that, right? Because you cannot overcome that kind of fear of talking to these people or kaning shyness in interacting with people if ever you will not do or execute, okay, this this way of communicating with them. Okay, so yeah, I guess that would be all for today. Okay, so this quote is actually from Will Evans, design thinker in residence at NYU State. Okay, so designer po siya actually. So this is actually relevant. He's a UX design. Okay, so I guess that would be all for our topic in regards with UI UX. First lesson, okay, in line with UI UX. Okay, so this is actually methods of research. Okay, so any questions so far? Okay, so sir, will you upload this? Yes, I'm going to upload this file para naamoy unsa, naamoy reference, okay, or naamoy i-review. So PDF ra pod na format ako ang i-upload para dili madaot ang font. Ang font na gigamit na ako actually kaya siguro naka-install sa inyo. Actually ngil adya tanawon if ever wala ni siya na font, okay, sa inyong part. Okay, so PDF ra pod ako ang i-upload sa Google Classroom. So any questions pa ba or concerns? Questions in line with the lesson? None so far. Okay, sige. So if there are no questions, so undan nasabda na po ninyo ang ato ang discussion karon, just like what I have said, nahaom gyud ta sa kaning afternoon na session, no. So unta wala mo giduka, you are able to maintain your focus now in regards with the topic because these subjects are actually major subjects ninyo. Okay, so you need to do some extra effort, okay, para makapasaan din ng mga subjects. Okay, so at least I guess successful man po na pag-deliver sa topics. So hopefully naamoy na to, If ever naamoy questions or confusions or concern in regards with the lesson, then again, please feel free to message me via Messenger. Okay, so you can actually tag me sa group chat, okay, or message me directly, okay, sa Google Chat or sa Messenger natin. Okay, so if ever wala na questions or if ever wala na may concerns, okay, so the remaining time, so napa may less than 2 hours. Actually, dapat 6 p.m. ako man, diba? And wala pa tayo TLA and ET karon. Okay, so first week pa man nato, so I'm going to spare you, okay, with the activities na ihatag na ako. No? Next week na magsugod sa atong TLAs and activities. Okay, so you can actually rest. So I hope na last subject na ninyo no para makapahulay po no. Okay, so para maka-ready na po ang inyong mic sa mga future na mga discussions natin. Okay, so I guess that concludes our discussion for today. So let's end this one with a prayer again. So let us put ourselves in the holy presence of the Lord. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and will be forever. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit again. Again, guys, thank you so much for your time. Unta na mo'y natunhan kato. So I'm going to see you next week again, the same time. Okay, so I'm going to prepare another lesson and expect na lang na nanatay activity next week. So I guess that would be all for today. Have a great day ahead, everyone.